need. The next speakers will share the detail of that funding and how it can be positively impacted on the lives of people affected by dementia. I'm proud of our submission, and in particular the fact that we took the time to listen to many, many stakeholders and translate what they told us into tangible asks to government. I'm going to leave a few words here now before I sit down to a woman who is caring for her husband with young onset dementia. And here's what she has been saying. I often think that this is me, that this is my life. I'm exhausted from explaining to family, to friends, to the doctor, to the public health nurse. Our family needs help, and I'm so tired from asking over and over again. I don't know where I'm going to go more. We can't wait. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Kieran. That was such an impactful quote there at the end. Next, I'm going to welcome our Dr. Laura O'Philbin. She's our Interim Research and Policy Manager. And Laura's going to talk us through the approach that we took in preparing this submission and outline some of our budget asks as well.
Hi, good morning. So look, this PBS pre-budget submission, it's not about me, it's not about my colleagues, it's not even about the Alzheimer Society of Ireland. It is about the 64,000 people living with dementia who are struggling day in and day out, and need is continuing to rise. We can't ignore that. So my role in this process was to lead the development of the evidence base for this pre-budget submission. So what does that mean? I had to understand, my colleagues and I, the experiences and what kind of support that people living with dementia actually want and what support that they actually need. And then we needed to go and tie this together with best practice. So how did we do this? Let's see if this will move. No. Oh, there we go. So the first thing we did was a comprehensive review of research reports and publications, looking at what is best practice, what do we already know, and what do we need to find out. Next, we spoke to our self-advocacy groups. We needed to get that lived experience. What is it like to live with dementia? What are your experiences? Tell us everything about it. Then we needed to consult with our colleagues who have our ear to the ground, so our dementia advisors, service managers, branch volunteers and our care workers. They know what's going on every day out in the services. And then a core part of our consultation was actually speaking to people affected by dementia and their families through online and telephone surveys. And actually, did you know that one of the biggest challenges in dementia research is participant recruitment? It is so hard to find people to take part in your research. But in this consultation, we didn't actually have to go searching for people to take part. We didn't have to try that hard to find people because they were crying out to have their voices heard. They wanted to tell us what struggles they're going through, what supports they need, and really importantly, what they want the Alzheimer Society of Ireland to tell you, their political representatives, on their behalf. And following this, I felt that bringing together all of these different perspectives and all of these different experiences would be so incredibly challenging, but actually it was really straightforward because the same needs were arising again and again. And it's this, all of this together is what has led us to our 6 asks. So our first ask is for €120,000 investment in inclusive dementia supports. People affected by dementia want to be meaningfully included in society. They want to feel like they're part of their communities, just like you and I. So this would support the recruitment of 2 community engagement officers that would deliver the following dementia inclusive initiatives within their communities, and it would cover the development and the running costs of these. We have just come from a wonderful and vibrant month celebrating Pride. But for people from the LGBTQIA+ community with dementia, there are no dementia-specific services and supports that are tailored to their unique needs. So we know that we all have work to do in this regard, and the ASI is proposing the development of a support group specifically for people from the LGBTQIA+ community who are affected by dementia. Secondly is to roll out our National Sporting Memories Reminiscence Programme. We all know Ireland is steeped in sporting history. Our local clubs and our teams are embedded in our communities across the country. So the Alzheimer Society has worked with Stirling University in the UK and with the Dementia Understand Together campaign to develop a sporting memories handbook. And this handbook provides a guide on how to develop a reminiscence programme like this, so people can come together, chat about their memories, chat about their lives, all through the medium of sport. And this raises awareness of dementia across communities. Thirdly, creating a dementia-inclusive generation now more than ever is just so important. Did you know that 1/3 of young people know a person living with dementia? So we collaborated with the Dementia Services Information and Development Centre to develop and deliver a dementia awareness programme that we deliver in secondary schools. It educates students on how to become part of a dementia-inclusive generation and how to empower them to educate each other, which is really important through peer support. Now we want to roll this out further. And the final community initiative under this ask is support groups for people with younger onset dementia. Can you imagine being in your 40s or your 50s and receiving a diagnosis of dementia? You might have a career, you might have a young family, you might have a mortgage, and there are people in this room who have been in that very situation. And people with younger onset dementia actually have great difficulty fitting into existing dementia services because they're tailored towards older people. And we found that this was actually a barrier. So even if someone with younger onset dementia really needed that support group, they were less likely to go because it wasn't tailored to their age group. They couldn't really relate to the other attendees. So we think it's critical to have support groups specifically for people affected by younger onset dementia. Moving to our next ask is a €1 million investment in dementia research centres of excellence. Now, as a dementia researcher, I will try not to be too biased, but COVID-19 has really shown us the power of research. I think we can all agree on that. And we need research to understand what causes dementia, how might you treat dementia, what are the best ways to diagnose it, to look at new interventions, and to hopefully one day find a cure. And did you know that 105 disease-modifying agents are on trial, clinical trial, worldwide? So of these, a couple of them are in their later stage clinical trials, and that means that there's high optimism that at least some of them will be licensed for use in the coming years. And that is a really big deal, and that is really exciting, but that is all down to research. But actually in Ireland, I mentioned that we have huge problems trying to find research participants to take part in our research, but actually the biggest issue for us is a lack of available funding. The research can't take place in the first place because we don't have dementia-specific research streams. So we are requesting that the government invest just €1 million in dementia-specific research funding to support the development of research centres of excellence. This means they will be grants provided over a couple of years to world-class researchers that enable them to innovate in cure, care, treatment, and providing top-class and world-class services. Our final ask that I will talk to you about this morning is for €1.4 million investment in the memory assessment and support services. Last year, the National Dementia Office published the draft model of care for dementia in Ireland. This is a comprehensive outline including targets and practice recommendations of how we look at assessment, diagnosis, disclosure, telling someone about their diagnosis, planning, and post-diagnostic supports. And this has the power to be transformative. It really, I cannot overstate that enough, it really will be transformative. And actually, I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate the NGO and the Department of Health on its publication. So now the ASI is calling on the government to implement this ambitious model of care to make that impact. And in this budget 2023, we are searching for funding for a further 2 memory assessment and support teams to exist in communities where need is the highest, and they are at a cost of €700,000 each. So far, that covers 3 of our 6 asks this morning, and as you will see, all of our asks today are driven by evidence, they are driven by research, and they are driven by what people living with dementia and their families actually want and need, and I think it's hard to argue with that. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Laura. And it's incredible to see the breadth of the consultation, but also how many people actually who wanted to take part in the research as well, and some really interesting asks there for additional support and services. Next, I'm delighted to welcome Helena Quaid. Helena is the chair of our Dementia Carer Campaign Network, and Helena will be speaking to you about the importance of carer supports.
Thank you, Cormac. As chair of the Dementia Carers Campaign Network, I do hear stories from all over Ireland about the difficulties of the caring journey. Dementia is never easy, and neither is caring. But the right supports can have an absolutely incredible impact. The Alzheimer Society of Ireland is asking for 2.3 million in funding for family carer training, carer support groups, and counselling. A huge majority of carers who engage with the organisation said they desperately needed this emotional support. These carers are loving and capable people who want to support their loved one living with dementia. But to do so, we need to be supported ourselves. How do I know this? Because I am a spousal carer, and I did not always look after myself. I did not always take care of my health. We joined, sorry, I lost my train of thought there, because it came back to a research study that actually got me thinking about my own healthcare. And when I read this study called De-Stress, it resonated with me and made me fully embrace my need to look after myself so I can give my best to Kevin. The aim of this study, which was carried out by Trinity College in Dublin and supported by the Alzheimer Society of Ireland, was to assess the health and well-being of spousal carers of people with dementia in Ireland. Overall, the study showed that higher levels of burden in family members providing care to spouses with dementia were associated with poorer quality of health and were likened to an increased number of health conditions such as high blood pressure, anxiety and depression, to name but a few. I was facing carer burnout myself, watching Kevin deal with his many symptoms of Lewy body dementia. I asked myself, if I can't cope or I get sick, then in my absence, who supports Kevin? In these situations of carer overload and fatigue, counselling for the carer will be invaluable and all our loved ones will benefit. I have also learned during this journey that dementia is really a family disease affecting each member in different ways. But it is also important to acknowledge that for carers of young onset dementia like myself, we have to overcome some tough obstacles along the way, such as financial hardship through the hidden cost of the disease in more ways than one. Lewy body dementia, Lewy body disease, is indeed a costly disease and full of loss, which brings with it a most unusual type of anticipatory grief. My husband Kevin was 53 years old when diagnosed 5 years ago. He had to give up working, give up driving, because of his hallucinations and his spatial awareness problems. He also had to give up being a DJ, which he loved, and as you can imagine, for anyone that knows him, he was a brilliant, entertaining DJ. But together, we did not give up. We joined the Alzheimer Society of Ireland and working with other advocates like ourselves who inspired us to keep our heads above the water. And they really did inspire us to keep our heads above water. And our dementia advisor in North Cork helped us hugely. The dementia advisors that we are very thankful for, who work with the Alzheimer Society. And once we kept our head above water, we moved into a space of acceptance. And of course, once we were in that, we can now work one day at a time. And we take every day as it comes. Since then, Kevin's motto is never give up. Interventions such as support for caregiver training have been shown to reduce stress and improve our quality of life, allowing us to give our best to our loved ones for a longer period of time. Studies have shown that interventions such as supports for carers can delay nursing home placement, which is a total win-win, both for the person with dementia and their loved ones. Last year, the Alzheimer Society of Ireland presented research to show that the powerful combination of family carer training, carer support groups and counselling has a proven impact on our health and well-being. That appeal for funding was not successful. Each year that we don't receive support, our own health and well-being deteriorates. We need your help to fund these life-changing and life-saving services. Please remember today, remember our dementia family carers and all the work they do, mostly unseen and behind closed doors.
Thanks so much for that, Helena, and you're so right. Self-care, care for the carers is so important, and those services that you outlined there, the family care training, the counselling and the support groups are really, really crucial. Thanks for that. Now I'd like to introduce you to Siobhan O'Connor. Siobhan is the ASI's Head of Operations, and Siobhan is going to speak to you today about the growing need for dementia-specific daycare centres and community daycare at home as well.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks, Cormac. I'll start by just talking about yesterday. Yesterday morning, I was on the road at 7 a.m. and I set out to visit 5 daycare centres across North and South Dublin. I sat with the daycare managers and each centre had a need. The questions I was asked is, can we open for another day? Can we expand the pods? What about the waiting lists? They are so large. The daycare at home continues to help, but please, let's make sure that we secure extra funding for these services from the budget. That's my ask today. On visiting the centres, the joy, the fun, the support and energy of staff put into running these centres is second to none. Every day they are speaking to families who are crying out for help and support, and it's our job to ensure we can deliver these services. As I was in one location, a lady came to the gate and handed in the paperwork to secure a place for her dad. It transpires the home assessment had only been completed a few hours ago, but the lady was afraid that the place would be gone, so great was her need. This is an example of the need right across the country. Today we are asking for sufficient funding for 2 services, daycare and daycare at home. We have daycare centres in the communities throughout Ireland. They offer a wide range of activities, meals and social opportunities. Often when we speak about these services, we do so in cold, hard language. We talk about numbers and hours and service level agreements, but the reality is that our daycare centres are full of joy and life and fun. People with dementia are supported to get out of the house and meet people, and family members have some respite. We want to continue our work embedded in the communities, but we need funding. The cost to run our daycare centres is rising rapidly, and our funding has not kept pace. The second service that requires funding is daycare at home. During the pandemic, when our centres were closed, we pivoted to offer daycare at home. I'm so proud of our colleagues who stepped up and at a challenging time supported people affected by dementia in their homes. I remember when the service began. Never did I see such a plan mobilised so quickly. We aim to deliver over 60,000 hours of daycare at home this year, but we will need this funding to continue, otherwise the service cannot. But what began as a response to a crisis has quickly emerged as a responsive person-centred service. People who do not want to leave the house can still have social stimulation, company and purpose. The service honours the life story of people with dementia, but providing a service that is delivered one-to-one and focused on their unique needs. It is responsive and indeed the very opposite to a one-size-fits-all approach. Now, being from Cork, we consider ourselves good negotiators and bad at taking a no. But you know, as I was preparing today, I thought about it. This is not a negotiation, because I know today the support has been given, but we need to build on this support. I believe everyone in this room wants the best for their constituents. You don't want to say no. I know that you receive phone calls from people desperate for a service, and I believe you want to help. With the adequate funding, the Alzheimer Society can support your constituents. We bring joy and purpose to their lives and ensure people with dementia in your community are active members of that community. Please go back to your party colleagues, to the ministers and the policy makers, and tell them dementia can't wait. The help needs to continue.
Thanks for that, Siobhan. And it's really hard to hear that those families are crying out for need. And I agree, this isn't a negotiation. These services are really, really badly needed. My next speaker, our final speaker today, is Kevin Quaid. He's the chair of our Irish Dementia Working Group. He's a Limerick native, now living in Cork. He was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia, age of 53. And Kevin's going to speak to us today about home care.
Thanks, Cormac. And unlike Siobhan, I'm from Limerick. We don't negotiate, we win. Hi everyone and welcome, and it's great to see you all here. And my name is Kevin Quaid. I'm 58 and unfortunately I have Lewy body dementia. And I'm sorry if I got upset at times, but these are the facts. I'm chair of the Irish Dementia Working Group and I'm vice chair of the European Working Group of People with Dementia. We've just listened to our wonderful panel. We've listened to Laura, Yvonne, my wife Elena, and that's a hard thing to do, to listen to her even at the best of times. But we know the facts and figures and the amount of hard work and dedication that has gone into building the evidence for the pre-budget submission. But we must remember the faces and the voices behind this report. And I'm just one of those people living with dementia. I'm just one face, one voice of the 64,000 plus people who have dementia in this country. And I want to speak to you about the urgent need for home care funding. Most people with dementia want to stay at home for as long as possible and in their communities. But God, I do. And to do that, we need home care. We urgently need traditional home care, support for our personal care, our general health care needs, and to give our families respite. But we also need non-traditional home care. Yes, I need a shower. I need a shower to go for a pint. Yes, I need my medication. I need my medication to stay alive, so that I can attend GA matches out in the country. That's what I'm looking for. The government must understand the importance of our social health. My community means everything to me. Everything. Can any of you in this room imagine your life without your neighbours, without your friends, your family, your hobbies, and your local club? Just think about it. That everything in your life will be taken away from you. Before I was diagnosed with dementia, Helena sometimes needed a break from me. Shocking, I know, just look at me, who would want a break from me? But now I have dementia, as well as my wife. She is now my carer and supporter, and she needs a break from that. I believe home care is critical for the whole family well-being. And I want all of you in this room to bring this message to the government. When you leave here today, please bring this message to the government. Good home care can help people with dementia live their lives with purpose and continue with what brings them joy. I have an example for you. I used to love to bake and clean as I go, and the kitchen would be spotless, regardless of what my wife says, and the smell absolutely delicious, until the last time I made an apple tart. When I looked around, I put the apple cores into the dishwasher. And the kitchen, it looked like there had been an explosion at Adlam's. There was flour everywhere. And I just thought, what in the name of God is gone wrong? But if I had home care assistants to support me, they could help me by chopping the apples, make sure the kitchen wasn't destroyed in flour. I don't want them to do the job for me, but I may need a little prompt and direction from them every now and again. Home care staff can enable me to do the things I love to do and to do it for longer, which in turn means staying happier and well for longer. I recently made gooseberry jam from my own gooseberry bushes that I grew out the back. Picked them, had about 25 plasters on, but that's another story. But I had a problem. There's 4 rings in the cooker, and which knob matched the ring? So that's what I'm trying to tell you. They're small things, but we need help to live our normal lives at home. I want to be able to do to continue to do the things I love, but now I need help, and it shouldn't be all down to Helena. I know Helena is terrified to leave me at home alone. That's not fair. It's not fair on anyone. But if Helena knows that I have home care coming a few times a week, then she can plan her life, knowing that I'm in safe hands and that the house will be still standing when she comes home. I understand the time may come when a person with dementia needs 24-hour care and support. But I'm asking you, our political representatives, please ensure people with dementia are not going to long-term care because they cannot be supported at home. We have a right to be in our communities. Don't ever forget that. It's our right to be in our communities. Not only does it make human sense, it makes financial sense. Even I know that. Investing in home care so people like me living with dementia can continue to live life, enjoyable and meaningful lives in their community will be life-saving, life-enhancing for all of us with dementia.
Kevin, thanks so much today. That was very, very impactful. And I think we can all agree that home care that is dementia appropriate is really, really needed right across the country. As we come towards the end of our launch today, I think we can also agree that there really is a need to start planning for the future. From what we've heard today, there really needs to be a renewed focus on the rising numbers of people who are developing dementia and living with dementia in our society today, and how are we going to respond to this? At the end of the day, the measures that we've outlined today, they're really about all of our communities. They're about all of our loved ones. They're about ourselves. They're about our future selves, and our future selves will thank us. They'll thank us for taking action now. I'm happy at this point if anybody has any questions or comments that they would like to ask. We have an expert panel here who've delivered some excellent speeches today. If anybody does have a comment or a question that they would like to ask to the panel, I'm happy to take that now. Helen? I can give you a mic. Sorry, Helen.
It's all right, I don't think I need
Are
one.
you sure? Okay. You go ahead.
I'm sure they're all that. Well, 9 years ago I started here. I was the first person in Ireland with Alzheimer's to plead with our government for funding. And I want to thank the government consecutively for what they have done. But as you've heard the stats today, we have a long way to go. And I am pleading with you for daycare at home, as you've heard from my colleague Kevin and Siobhan, and the importance of having daycare at home. Kevin believe that I don't have to make the pie because I want home care at home. Siobhan, you can block your ears. I can go to the local cafe and have a slice of apple pie with me, and gets me out of the house. So I want you to know I live alone. I am a widow for the last year and a half. The dog is my carer. My son for a half an hour from New York every night. I'm looking at my friend Carmel Gagan from Oughterard who travels with me. But those things are really important, and I've done all the things that the Department of Health have asked me to do. I've stayed well. I've stayed reasonably active in my community. With home care, daycare at home, I cannot tell you when you go back to that building across the road and tell your colleagues in the Department of Health how important it is to us. It gives us a quality of life. It gives us a life that Kevin talked about. Helena worrying about my own. But of course, Sean spent his 8 years almost worrying about me living alone. And it's not easy living alone. But when you have daycare at home, as I now have, not every day, but I have some hours, and they make such an impact on my life. And I'm telling you this because I want you to hear the real story. That's what daycare at home does. It keeps me at home. It keeps me well. We do brain exercises. We chat. We laugh. We walk the dog. You know, it brings me such a great quality of life, and that's what we need. We need you to put money in, and we don't want you to. Many of us don't want to go to day centres for a start. We're all very different, and day centres are wonderful for many people, and many of my colleagues. And also, I think that if you can keep us well at home, you know, we don't want to go to care homes. We want to live in our own homes, and that's everywhere. And we also want. I see. Rose Conway Walsh here, you know, we want equality. We want equal standards marrying in Sligo as they have in Dublin. We don't have that across the country, and we need to make sure that happens, that we have equality. But look, it's great to be here. Thank you. I'm proud that I've worked really hard on myself for the last 9 years to be here with you. I wish my other half was here with me again, but he's not. But I know he's looking down on me, and I think that if you can go back and really pressure your department. They're your constituents. We all want to live at home. And finally, I want to mention all the people that are not with us. You can't imagine how many I've lost in our working group in the last 9 years. You know, if it isn't here, it's been in Europe. Connie, I know Derek was one of the founder members, was myself. And, you know, the work that we put in has made life better in some ways, for Kevin and Helena today, because we've worked on through the years. And we continue to work as long as we can. But it's daycare at home and daycare services, no matter what they are, but it's important that you look for funding and that we get that funding and you take care of your constituents and they take care of you.
Thank you, Helen. That was lovely. And thank you, Helen, for being one of our long-standing advocates as well, because over the last number of years, you've really beat that drum, and year in, year out, you bring that message to government. So thank you so much. And you can see, as you said, those services, daycare at home, they give people a great quality of life. So thanks for that today, Helen. That was terrific.
Just to say a brief word, Joe O'Reilly is my name from the Shannon, and everything we've heard is very moving, and nothing beats personal experiences in terms of presentations. Just to say to you, the thing that we're experiencing from my office in Cavan, and it's just to say it aloud to colleagues here, we'll have to find a way of dealing with it, is not the allocation of hours, but it's the availability of people to do it. And we have a number of those now, and it's a nightmare scenario. And we'll have to look to our new Ukrainian population, to other populations that have come among us recently, and we'll have to get imaginative of finding people. Because what we have now, I have 5 or 6 of these, and if I have those, my colleagues have similar and more. And what I'm saying is that the hours are allocated, and there's no one to do them. And this is a repeated pattern. There's not much point in a theoretical set of hours. So I just thought I'd throw it out there. It's a real issue, that rather than in my area, the willingness to grant them is there, but the availability of people is the issue. I don't know, maybe it varies from area to area.
Would anyone like to come in on that, or?
Yeah, I think you're right. Your areas particularly, we do have a lot of hours there to deliver. There is a shortage of staff, you know, as recruitment. It's one of the better areas though still for actually delivering hours.
Sure.
And the money has been made available by the HSE in Cavan and Monaghan. It's
It's
quite very
interesting
strong.
that your experience tallies with
Yeah,
mine.
it would be. There is a shortage. Yeah, there is. We could, if we had more staff, we could deliver more hours. Definitely.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Carmel?
I'd like to- Hi, I'm Carmen Egan and I'm from Connemara in the west of Ireland, and I cared for my mum, and that was in 2010. So I can tell you that care staff wise it's got even worse than it was then, and I think one of the main problems, and it's not one of the main, it is the main issue, is the wages. If the staff were given a decent wage, it's not a job that people will go after now. And I think the other thing that we have to look at, and I have been advocating for since day one, is that we cannot have profit making from the care of the vulnerable. And private agencies should be a thing of the past, and they should be all based in their own community, as we have in Care Connemara. Forum Connemara set that up a number of years ago. There's also one in Dublin that has contacted me. It's based, I think it's Crumlin, and it's a community-based care. We don't want to hear about Home Instead or Bluebird Care or anything else, giving the girls 10, 11 euro an hour. No petrol money. They have to pay in-house staff to give them the training. I mean, seriously. So when we treat people as human beings and give them a decent wage, and that caring is no longer one of these careers that nobody wants, and we don't have to look, we can have everybody, every nationality can work in care. You know, it doesn't have to be any particular nationality, and it shouldn't be. It should be on your, it's really a vocation, caring.
Thanks for that, Carmel. Thanks for that. Kate?
Hi, I'm Kate Irving. I'm Professor of Clinical Nursing, and I'm also on the board of the Alzheimer Society, and I'm also a family carer of my mum who has Alzheimer's. I want to echo what you said, Kyle. Kyle and I have known each other for years. I completely agree. Inclusion in care. But let's not just think about people from the Ukraine, because guess what? Women think and men care. Men can care. We don't recruit. We've got to positively start looking for men in care, because men sometimes make brilliant carers, as do women. But you know, we've got to start thinking about recruiting more broadly and thinking about inclusion. But it does have to become an attractive job, because let me tell you, it's a really, really highly skilled job to care for somebody. I train home care workers. It's really, really difficult job. It's ethically challenging. Constantly they're faced with how do I get somebody to accept care who's refusing care, and I've got half an hour to get in and out of here. That's not an attractive job to do. It's very, very stressful. They're not paid in between the hours that they're only paid for the hours they're in somebody's house. If they have to travel from Howth to Sutton and then to Portmarnock and Malahide, they're not paid for any of those hours in between that they travel. They're not paid the petrol in Dublin. Sometimes they are down the country. It's not an attractive job. You can stack shelves and earn more money. So why would you have the hassle of having to deal with somebody you're doing your best to help them and they're refusing care, which is a really, really common situation for home care workers. So I think we have to make a whole root and branch. This is not just a little bit of around the edges. We need to start investing in home care, career pathways, training for people who do home care, and thinking about men who can care as well, because there's a lot of men with dementia would rather be cared for by a man. And that's a really, why would any culture that eliminates half of the population from the potential pool of people who might solve the problem is going to be a weaker culture. So we need to think about this much more broadly than just recruiting a particular sector, because this is everybody's problem.
Thanks for that, Kate. I'll go over here now. Thank you.
The last two speakers have covered what I was going to say in terms of the care. I'm Rose Conway-Walsh from Mayo. I want to thank Helen as well for all of the work and the dedication she has done, and in helping us to understand dementia and Alzheimer's in a better way. And all of the speakers here today, I think it's hugely important. But it does come back to me. We had a really good system here in the HSE, you know, the delivery of care, when carers were paid in according to the job, and then we decided to privatise it, and we decided to fix something that wasn't broken at the time instead of investing in what was there. So we failed to. I'm particularly concerned about the rising cost of energy and fuel, obviously, in rural areas. So we're kind of nearly getting to a situation where the workers, it's costing the workers to go to work, and where we're giving people minimum contract hours that they cannot, they can't get a car loan, they can't do all of the things that they should be enabled to do for the work that they do. So I think that's the crux of the problem. Again, these are quite small asks here in terms of what is being delivered and in terms of keeping people out of hospital settings and all of that. So certainly thank you for today and thank you for this. And having the budget in September, at the end of September, we need to make real progress here. I don't think it's good enough to just say, well, we allocate so much. Anyway, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
There's a root and branch, as was very eloquently said by the other speakers, reform that we need to do.
That's great. Thank you so much for your support. Just take this lady here, sorry.
Thanks very much. So I'm Aisling Golan. I'm in South Ireland as well and based in Ballinasloe. So great to see our representatives here from Galway, and I know Senator Sean Kine here with us as well. I suppose my background is that I would have worked, in research in anyway Galway, and I would have worked as a project manager. My background now is in nursing, but there was a really excellent Professor Dementia Casey there who ran the Mario project and would have worked with the dementia unit based in St Brendan's in Lochbray, and they had a dedicated unit there, and it was absolutely crucial to sort of see, I suppose for me coming in to learn so much about caring and the importance for people with dementia, but also their families, but also the assisted living, being able to live independently in your own home. And being able to use, I suppose, technology supports to do that. And understanding a little bit more about the condition and understanding how to support people to do that. So to me it's really important the investment in research to help people to live independently, to also look at the technology supports that are there so that people are not being left in loneliness and isolation, which is what happens when it becomes more progressive in terms of dementia, and that they can feel that they have a connection as well as to their loved ones around them, and also for your loved ones that they feel support as well. So I suppose for me it's just really crucial that we are seeing support. So I would be on the education committee, and I suppose for me it's about the supports coming through in terms of awards for research in this particular area of dementia. And I think coming across because it's multidisciplinary. We were working with robotics teams in Italy for example, and we have the nursing expertise and wisdom and knowledge here in Galway. And then we also were dealing with people with dementia themselves. We dealt with a lot of local dementia associations, people with dementia and their families who spoke. Speaking in terms of my role as a representative, I represent Roscommon and Galway, and the Roscommon Health Service, we deal with that group as well, and they're trying to manage recruitment campaigns. And I know that it's a balance, but they are working with our health services to provide care, and a great level of care. And the challenge is we have the most people ever back at work, which is wonderful to hear, higher than pre-COVID. But the challenge becomes how to get more people like that who may not have been working previously to come back into the workforce and consider doing a course in healthcare systems. We have level 5s, you can do this course through ETBs, flexible working hours. I suppose what I'd be doing is looking at, and in my own area, is about how to promote the recruitment campaigns that have been run by these companies and run by these agencies. And some of these come from a really good place. Some of these are community groups that came together to put a company together that are providing care in rural areas, where you're travelling an hour to get from one place to another place with no supports, as has been said, for diesel, no support for the cost of transport. So there are a lot of issues, particularly in regional areas, and I suppose that's what we're fighting for within our group as well, the importance of caring, but supporting people who are travelling hours. And I know you mentioned Dublin, but I must admit there's a dart, and there are buses, and there is no public transport when you come to really rural regional areas.
Thanks for that, and thanks for your support. I might take this gentleman, and I'll come to you. I'll take this gentleman here, and I'll come to you after this, Fiona.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you for your words. My name is Theo. I'm here for Senator Mary Siri Carney, who's sorry she can't be here. She's currently in the Shannon, but always happy to help. And if you need anything, feel free to call her office anytime. But that said, I do have a question. A lot of this has been previously addressed, but I suppose I just am curious. Do you think with this budget, will it help to alleviate kind of the stress of the staffing issues in this industry?
Does anyone want to take that on the panel?
Yeah, I mean, look, I suppose at the moment, if you look at the hours that we're going to deliver, I would say this year in relation to the day care at home, I'll take that because that's what we're delivering. And we were allocated 1.75 million, and that's we deliver over 60,000 hours of daycare at home, and that daycare at home is that blocks of hours, so people go in and you spend quality time with people. So we've that set up now from the pandemic. We need that to continue, and we have that staff to deliver that. So what we have, like, if we would need more staff if we got more funding, but as a minimum we need to keep that funding and keep those hours being delivered by the staff that we have. So that's the answer to that piece, around that piece of funding that we need from the budget to be maintained, I suppose is the right word there on that.
Yeah, and just to go back to something that Kate said, and someone else, and Cameron mentioned it as well. If there is enough money there, and if the position of a carer or a supporter can be made an attractive position, trust me, there's a lot of people out there that would gladly take it up in the morning. And I'll give you one great example. We have a terrific dementia advisor. He's a Kerryman and he's living in Limerick, so he'd be happy with his move to Limerick. He cared for his mum. He was a bricklayer. He cared for his mum who had Alzheimer's. And he got a love of care, and he got someone said the word vocation. There's hundreds of men out there. But why would you leave a job as a bricklayer other than to get in out of the weather and back-breaking work and go for a job that has far less money? But by God, if the money was decent, we're not talking about paying a small fortune, we're talking about giving people a decent standard of living. The amount of people that can stay at home and that their rights are being looked after because they want to stay at home, like say Helen wants to stay at home. If anything happened to Lean in the morning, where do I go? I'm still only 58. But if there's someone there that said, oh, caring for someone, it's not that such a bad job, and there's nice perks with it, then that's a game changer. And what's going to be a game changer? Money.
Thanks for that. Fiona, I'll just go to Fiona now.
Thanks for your comment, Fiona O'Loughlin, and look, just once again, it's absolutely, every time I hear Kevin and Kevin speak, it just inspires me and empowers me to do more in terms of supporting this really wonderful group that it's an honour to work with as chair of the All-Party Committee on Dementia. And most certainly we support your ask, particularly around the home care, and you make it so eloquently, you make the argument very clearly and eloquently, and the All-Party Committee will be doing their own submission in terms of supporting. But just on one particular aspect, and I suppose I'm speaking with two hats as well, as chair of the Women's Caucus in the Oireachtas, we have agreed that the area that we're going to focus on this year in terms of doing research, having our own debate and putting forward recommendations to government is around that whole area of care and the value of care. And care is such a wide area that it's difficult sometimes to find where exactly we focus, because obviously there's childcare, there's care for those that need the support, like those with dementia, for people with disabilities also, and of course it's about supporting the care worker and giving them more support and respect in terms of the value that they add to the individuals, their families, excuse me, and of course to society. So the National Carers Strategy, and there's only been one, and that was written in 2011. So, and that does not, because we've gone through it in detail, that only caters around those that are family carers. It does not include those that are being paid to work. So basically, it has been devaluing the work that they're doing. So our absolute focus is going to be to rewrite and redefine, and we'll be having full consultation. We'll be organising a one-day event in October of next year, and we'll be making very strong recommendations that will be debated both in the Dáil and in the Seanad. But I certainly think that that will be really important in terms of the issues that you're all addressing. So we'll be back to you in relation to that. But look, keep up the good work, everybody. You're just an incredible group of dedicated committed people that it's a pleasure, I know for me, but for many others to work with also. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Fiona. And thanks, Fiona, for all of your continued support as well. I'll just take Roisin now, and then I'll go to you, Paddy, okay? Roisin.
Thanks very much, Roisin Georgia from the Social Democrats. I just want to thank you all for your presentations. They were really impactful, and certainly from my own point of view, and I'm sure others, brought us down to earth in a very real way, in a very emotional way. Look, I just want to pick up on the points that were made by the first few speakers here at this session. Sorry, first of all, I just want to say in relation to Helena's comments, in talking about the need for home care, where you talked about a win-win situation for the person who is receiving care and also the person giving it. But it is win-win-win, because if we do this thing properly, there are huge benefits for the state and huge savings for the state. And I don't know if those sums have actually been done in your research department, but I think they're certainly worth putting up there in terms of measures to improve home care, delay going into a nursing home, and what that results in terms of savings for the state. Because home care is the most expensive way of providing care. And I just think that that point needs to be continually made. But in relation to the points that were made in the opening up of these questions, I think they're really, really valid. I mean, there is a postcode lottery at the moment, and to a large extent it depends on which areas are providing home care by the HSE. And in those areas, generally speaking, there isn't a problem. It's where we have the home instead and the other private providers where there are very serious problems. And as other people have said, it's because there's been an attempt to do this on the cheap. It's about outsourcing, and we're seeing that right across the health service. There's a huge demand for caring in a general way. You know, people are living longer, and not only in relation to people with particular conditions, people who are getting older, but also then in relation to children. And all of that workforce in the main, those jobs are being outsourced. They're yellow pack jobs. There's no security with them. The pay is hopeless. And is it any wonder that, you know, people aren't taking up those jobs, or they're leaving to go into retail, for example, which pays much better. And there's also that pull factor, because the HSE pay decent wages, and there's opportunities there for carers to work with the HSE, but there's also opportunities for people to go into, you know, home or healthcare assistance in nursing homes, in hospitals and so on, where again their terms and conditions are much, much better. There's security of employment and decent pay. My concern is that in spite of people, you know, saying they're supportive of all of this, the government is actually tendering for home care this year. And that's where the problem is, the terms of that tender, in my view, because that is about outsourcing large amounts of home care. It's about providing a top line profit to those companies, and the price of that is that the actual workers are treated very, very badly and expected to survive on, you know, a wage that isn't a living wage. So we have to deal with that. It's absolutely fundamental. And until we actually grasp that nettle, I think we're all going to continue seeing these kind of problems. It has to be done on the basis of decent pay for decent work. And there is massive potential for job creation in those areas, and massive interest in it as well, as Kevin has said, if they're properly structured jobs. And yes, I totally agree with the point you make about men should be encouraged into them, but what we need is a whole kind of apprenticeship type scheme, so that people can choose this as a career, not an afterthought. And you know, it used to be the case women at home would do a few hours caring. Those days are completely gone. It's about creating proper careers that are properly structured and properly paid. And that's the challenge. And my concern is that the government is going to go ahead this year with a tender which is about outsourcing more and more care. And we're going to find ourselves back in a situation where, you know, there's allocations being made, but there's massive vacancy rates. So I just say I'd urge you to take that up with government. We've certainly been doing that, many of us in the Dáil, but that's where the issue lies at the moment. And until we get that recognition at an official level, that this is an important role important jobs, they need to be include proper training, they need to be available for everyone, there needs to be security and decent pay, and that has to be the demand.
That's
Thanks
great.
very much.
Thanks for that, Deputy. I'll just take two final people. I'll take you, Paddy, now, and then Ronan, I'll come to you quickly at the end. Thanks, Paddy.
Paddy Crosby. I'm a member of the Dementia Care Campaign Network, and I sadly lost my beloved husband last November. I am pleading to all of you who are elected representatives to go back and make the case for the 6 asks that we have made today. I ask you to do this in memory of my beloved husband and the other members of the Dementia Working Group and the Dementia Carers Campaign who can't speak for themselves. We are looking to you to live up to your responsibility to make sure that these 6 asks happen. We hand the responsibility over to you. It is up to you to take the challenge. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Paddy. One last person there. Senator Mullen? Oh, sorry, Senator Mullen first. Are you sure? Okay.
Patricia Ryan is my name. I'm Sinn Féin spokesperson for older people, and I'm very aware that dementia is not only for older people. And I have met you before because I'm on the All Rockers group as well. I commend you for your presentation. It's absolutely brilliant. Kevin, you can come to my house any day and do that. On a serious note, though, I do understand from your wife's point of view where you are coming from. I was a carer in the former life of my husband who suffers from a different illness, and I think what we are dealing with is, as carers in the home, is an absolute disgrace. I think we're saving a fortune. We get little or no support. The pay we get for doing it, it's not that you want pay for caring for your loved one, but you do need to be recognised for the job you do. You also need to be put in a position where you can have your mental health looked at. It can be extremely draining, and when you say you want to leave to get respite, it doesn't mean you want to leave Kevin, or I didn't want to leave Michael, but the reality is you need that headspace to get there for yourself. And I think we need certainly to be pushing for carers allowance for people that are in the home to be a much better package. How can anybody live currently in the cost of living crisis on a little over €200? And also, being from South Kildare, while I would have people coming to my office who have been granted care, the lack of those in a position to do that job is awful, and we certainly will need to be doing something around that. I certainly will be supporting you, and I will do all I can for you, and thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'll finally just take Senator Mullen there, and then we will leave it there then. Thank you.
I just want to say how much I appreciate the work of the Alzheimer Society of Ireland, and how much I appreciate this briefing today. It's very cogent. I'm very happy to give it any support I can in the Shannon. My own dear father died last year after almost 10 years living with dementia, and we were very blessed to be able to care for him at home, and indeed we were very grateful for the support we got from the Alzheimer Society of Ireland as part of all that. And we still recall very frequently, in fact, a day when he came home from one of the relatively few periods that he went into respite, when there was a particular time when he had to do so when my mother was sick. And we often recall the beatific smile that he gave when he returned to his own surroundings, and how surprised we were that it was one of those indicators that we would get from time to time that there was more going on there than perhaps we realised. So I greatly value the work that you're doing, and as I say, the supports that are there. What I'm taking away from this gathering today is a renewed sense of the importance that we value the work of carers, be they family carers or those who are paid to care. It mustn't be commercialised. And when you think about it, I often think about how one of the reasons why we're probably not moving as quickly as some people think to the age of driverless cars is that the decisions that only a human being can make can never be fully replicated by a machine, no matter how intelligent. And it seems to me, when you consider the work that is involved in caring for another human being, the emotional intelligence, all the skills that are involved in identifying signs and negotiating situations diplomatically to get the best result, it is something that requires tremendous training and respect, and therefore it shouldn't be seen as something low paid, get whoever you can to do whatever they can. So that's a really important point. I suppose the questions I always have, and I don't expect answers today, but the two issues that stay with me as well that I think of from time to time are, one, what more can we do to educate the wider public about dementia? So that they get over the misconceptions, you know, the easy comes, oh, it's a terrible thing to have to live with, and how do you get people to say, well, actually, there are so much possibilities and so many situations vary. That work of educating the public so that they too can support us in the work that we do when we're giving care. And I suppose the second question that I have, and I don't know the answer to, is how patchy from a region to region level across the country is the level of support available? You know, does it still vary enormously? Is there a greater evenness there than there used to be? Those are issues that interest me, and I'm always interested in hearing more about that. Certainly I will do what I can to raise this, have the content of this important document in my own interventions with Shannon in the coming months.
That's great. Thank you, Senator. Thank you.
Just to answer your first point, there's 64,000 people like me in the country, and to answer your first question, ask us and we'll tell you. If you ask the people who have it, we'll tell you what it's like to have the dementia, and ask our carers and our supporters, and they'll tell you what it's like to live, and that's what the answers lie. That'll answer your first question. Thanks.
Thank you, thank you, Kevin. And we'll leave the last word with you there, Kevin. Thanks, everyone. We will wrap it up there. So I just want to thank our fantastic speakers today. We'd Kieran, Laura, Helena, Siobhan and Kevin and all our staff here. I see Shrada, Saoirse and Judy there at the back. It's a huge support team around this. We also have some members of our other teams here today, Samantha, Joanne and Jarlath as well. So it's a big team effort to put a big event like this today. I see Kira there as well from our team. Thanks our advocates as well. Thanks everybody. Helen, we've Carmel, we've Paddy, we've a lot of people from our advocacy groups here today as well as board members as well. So it's a real team effort. So thanks everybody for that. And look, thanks everybody here for our your interest and your engagement, and really the funding call that we're making today. We really feel this could be potentially life-changing for so many people right around the country, and we really hope that everybody, like Paddy said, that everybody will be so motivated now to bring that message back to government that dementia just simply cannot wait. So fingers crossed, Paddy, indeed. So thanks everybody for today. Thanks very much.